Thank you all. What an enormous turnout tonight. Thank you. And let me apologize to the thousands of people who are waiting online to get in. We're going to get you in as soon as we can. Let me thank Don Finn, Alex Hahn, Anaya Tapia, Torres, Sugaza, and Vampire Weekend. Let me thank Jonathan Jackson. And let me thank Chuy Garcia. You know why we're going to win this election? We're going to win this election because the American people are sick and tired of establishment politics. They are sick and tired of establishment economics. And as Chuy just said, all across this country, what people are saying is we demand a government that represents all of us. And not just a handful of billionaire campaign contributors. What this campaign is about is bringing our people together. Not letting Donald Trump or anybody else divide us up. No, we are not going to hate Mexicans. We're not going to hate Muslims. We're not going to insult women. We're not going to insult veterans. We're not going to insult African Americans. We are going to bring our people together to make sure the United States of America today is the wealthiest country in the history of the world, but very few people know it. And the reason they don't know it is that people in Illinois and in Vermont and all over this country are working longer hours for lower wages. People are working 2 or 3 jobs trying to cobble together some income and some health care. And then we end up with a situation in which the top 0.1% now owns more wealth than the bottom 90%. And you know what people are saying? They're saying enough is enough. And people are standing up and they're fighting back against a corrupt campaign finance system. Men and women all over our country have put their lives on the line to defend American democracy. But American democracy is not about billionaires buying elections. When you have the Koch brothers and a handful of other billionaires, you got it. When you have a handful of billionaires spending more money in this election cycle than either the Democratic or Republican parties, that's not democracy, that's oligarchy. And you know what? We don't like oligarchy. We like democracy. And that is why we're going to overturn Citizens United. And why we're going to move toward public funding of elections. Now, while we're on this subject, let me mention some fundamental differences between Secretary Clinton and myself. Now, when we began this campaign, as many of you know, about 10 months ago, we were 3% in the polls, about 70 points behind Secretary Clinton. We had no money, we had no political organization, and nobody in America knew who I was. Other than that, we were in pretty good shape. And we had to make a decision. We had to make a decision early on. And that is, all of the pundits and all the political geniuses said, look, the only way you can raise the kind of money that you need is to set up a super PAC. Well, we thought about it for about 1/10 of a second, and then what we said is, look, we don't represent Wall Street. We don't represent corporate America. We don't represent the billionaire class. We are not going to beg them for money. We don't want their money. We're not going to have a super PAC. And what we did, and honest to God, in a million years, I would not have told you that this would have been possible. What we said is to the working families of this country, look, if you want real change, if you want an economy that works for all of us, help us out. And what happened in the last 10 months is we have received over 5 million individual campaign contributions. Anybody know what that average contribution is? I love that. That's right. That is revolutionary. What we are showing is you can run a national winning campaign without being dependent on Wall Street and big money. Now, Secretary Clinton chose to go in another direction, the way every other candidate is going, and that is to establish a super PAC. Actually, to establish several super PACs who are already spending millions of dollars against us in this campaign. Now, what she reported in her recent filing is that she raised in the last period $25 million for her super PAC, $15 million alone coming from Wall Street. And millions more coming from other special interests like the fossil fuel industry or the drug companies. And on top of that, as many of you know, Secretary Clinton has given speeches behind closed doors to Wall Street financial institutions and received $225,000 per speech. Now, what I think, if you're going to get $225,000 per speech, it must be a phenomenal speech. I It must be. I mean, you know, for $225,000 for an hour speech, it must be brilliant, insightful, and I think if it is such a great speech, it should be shared with the American people. Now, Secretary Clinton has said, her response is, well, if other people will release their transcripts, she will release hers. So tonight I want to make a very dramatic announcement. I am prepared to release all of the transcripts of my speeches to Wall Street. And that's pretty easy because there were no speeches to Wall Street. Now, I just don't know, boggles my mind, why Wall Street invited Secretary Clinton time and again to give speeches, but they didn't invite me. Maybe it's because if they did invite me, what I would have told them is that their greed, their recklessness, and their illegal behavior helped destroy this economy. And I would have told them that it is time to reestablish a 21st century Glass-Steagall bill. And I would have told them that we are going to break them up. So that is, you know, I always find it amusing that people say, well, you know, I am an agent of change. Yes, I get money from Wall Street, the drug companies, the fossil fuel industry, but I'm an agent of change. I don't think so. You know, and then people also say is, well, you know what, yeah, I'm getting zillions of dollars, but it won't influence me, not at all. That is what every politician always says. Now, you could say a lot about Wall Street. You could say that they are running fraudulent operations, that they're greedy, that they have helped destroy the economy of the United States. You can say all of that, but what you can't say is that they are dumb. The question is, why would they be giving millions and millions of dollars to Secretary Clinton? Now, all right, there are other differences that I want to spend a moment on. One of the differences is that Secretary Clinton has received the endorsement of many senators and congressmen, and some of them are my friends and good people, but she has also received the strong endorsement of Mayor Rahm Emanuel. So let me say, I want to thank Rahm Emanuel for not endorsing me. I don't want his endorsement. I don't want the endorsement of a mayor who is shutting down school after school and firing teachers. And there is another difference between Secretary Clinton and myself on a very, very important issue that has impacted the entire country and especially the Midwest. and that is our disastrous trade policies that have cost us millions of decent-paying jobs. Now, when I was elected to Congress in 1991, I could see in 5 minutes what these trade agreements, what NAFTA and the other trade agreements were about. Not complicated. Corporate America wrote these trade agreements, NAFTA and CAFTA, and permanent normal trade relations with China, for a very simple reason. They wanted to shut down factories in the United States of America, not pay workers here a living wage, and then take their factories to Mexico, China, other low-wage countries, exploit the people there, and bring their products back into this country. Since 2001, we have lost almost 60,000 factories in America. Not all of it attributable to trade, but a lot of it. We have lost millions of jobs because of these disastrous trade policies written by corporate America. I am proud to tell you that I have not only opposed, but helped lead the effort against all of these disastrous trade agreements. But on the other hand, Secretary Clinton has supported virtually every one of these disastrous trade agreements. And let me tell you, right now I'm helping to lead the opposition to another disastrous trade agreement called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And let me assure all of you that when American workers would be asked to compete against people in Vietnam who make 65 cents an hour as a minimum wage, if I'm elected president, that agreement will never be implemented. Now, I believe that we have an obligation as a wealthy nation to do everything that we can to help poor people all over America. That's what we do. But you don't have to destroy the American middle class to do that. Everybody here knows that foreign policy is a very important part of what a president does. In 2002, when I was in the House, Secretary Clinton in the Senate, Congress debated the most important foreign policy issue in the modern history of our country. I listened very closely to what President Bush and Vice President Cheney and all these guys had to say. And I concluded that they were not telling the truth, and I voted against them. Secretary Clinton heard the same arguments. She voted for the war in Iraq. And it gives me no joy, no pride to tell you that if you go to my website, BernieSanders.com, listen to the speech I gave on the floor of the House in 2002, and it predicted much of the kind of instability and chaos that would take place after Saddam Hussein was gone. We need a president that not only has experience, but has judgment. Now, our campaign is doing well, and we have, as you know, now won primaries and caucuses in 9 states. We won last week in Michigan when nobody thought we could win. We won when we were 20 points behind in the polls a few days before the election there. And we won because there was a record-breaking turnout in Michigan. And if there is a record-breaking turnout in Illinois, we're going to win right here. Now, what I have said throughout this campaign, and I'm the only candidate who will tell you this, and this is an important point, and that is that no president alone can address the crises facing our country. We need a political revolution. And that is not just campaign rhetoric, that is reality. And the reality is today that because of the power of Wall Street and corporate America and the corporate media and the large campaign donors, no president, no matter how well-intentioned, can do what has to be done for working families. The only way that we bring about the change this country needs is when millions of people get involved in the political process in a way that we have not seen in a very long time. And that is what the political revolution is about, and that's how we transform this country. Now, the big money interests, what they hope and they pray for is low voter turnouts. They don't want people participating in the political process. They own the system. They want to continue to control the system. The antidote of that is millions of people saying, sorry, this country belongs to all of us, not just a handful of billionaires. Now, our campaign does not go to mansions and listen to the needs of billionaires. They're doing just fine. What our campaign is doing is going around the country in meetings like this, listening to the needs of the middle class and working families of our country. And this is what I am hearing. I am hearing from workers. We were just in Florida yesterday near Disney World. People there are making $9, $10 an hour. And what people are telling me, they can't make it on $9 or $10 an hour. You can do the arithmetic as well as I can. Nobody can take care of a family on $10 an hour. You can't even take care of yourself. That is why we need to end this starvation minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. We're going to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. It is not a radical idea to say that if somebody in America works 40 hours a week, that person should not be living in poverty. And when we talk about equitable wages, this campaign is listening to women. And what women are saying is, why does it happen that they go to work doing the same work as the guy in the other room, and they're making 79 cents on the hour? And minority women are even making less. And I know that every man in this room will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity. A great nation, and sometimes we forget about it, but a great nation is judged not by how many millionaires and billionaires we have, but by how we treat the most vulnerable amongst us. Today in America, millions of seniors and disabled veterans are trying to get by on $11,000, $12,000 a year Social Security. And you know what? You can't get by on $11,000, $12,000 Social Security. Now, my Republican colleagues in the Congress, they say we should cut Social Security benefits. Well, I've got some bad news for them. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security benefits. This campaign is listening to the men and women who put their lives on the line to defend us, our veterans community. And they are asking to make sure they get the health care and other benefits that they deserve. And if I'm elected president, they will. This campaign is listening to our brothers and sisters in the African American community. And they know, and we all know, that we have a broken criminal justice system that must be reformed. What this campaign is about is thinking outside of the box, outside of status quo thought. And I want all of you to just think about this for a second. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world, yet we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. China, that's right. China is a communist authoritarian country. They don't tolerate dissent all that well. They are 4 times our size. We have more people in jail than China does. So we are going to be fighting and bringing about real criminal justice reform in America. Let me very briefly touch on a few of the points. For a start, I'm a former mayor. I worked with police officers my whole career. Vast majority of police officers are hardworking, honest, trying to do a very difficult job. But like any other public official, if a police officer breaks the law, he must be held accountable. Secondly, we have got to demilitarize local police departments. Third, we have got to make our local police departments look like the communities they serve in their diversity. Fourth, in my state of Vermont, neighboring New Hampshire, and all over this country, we are suffering from a major epidemic of heroin abuse and overdosing and opiate overdosing. This is a national crisis, and the time is now to recognize that drug addiction and substance abuse are health issues, not criminal issues. People who are abusing drugs and alcohol need health care. They don't need to be in jail. Criminal justice reform demands that we understand that to a very significant degree, the so-called war on drugs has been a failure. Right now, today, as part of the Federal Controlled Substance Act, marijuana is listed as a Schedule I drug right alongside heroin. Now, I know, and I hope everybody here knows, that heroin is a killer drug. But to list marijuana at the same schedule level as heroin is basically insane. And that is why I have introduced legislation to take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. Now, it is the decision of the states to decide whether to legalize marijuana. As you know, 4 states have already done that. But at the federal level, we should not make it a federal crime for people to possess marijuana. And when we talk about criminal justice reform, what we have got to do is to make certain that when people get out of jail, they have the education and job training to make sure they don't get back into that same environment which got them in jail in the first place. And when we talk about preventing young people from getting into jail, let me tell you something. I asked some economists in Washington to do a study for me a number of months ago on youth unemployment. This is what they found. No one talks about it, but it's a huge issue. Huge issue. This is what they found. Listen to this. For kids 17 through 20 who are high school graduates, not dropouts, for white kids, real unemployment, 33%, Latino kids, 36%, African American kids, 51%. You know what we are going to do? We're going to invest in our young kids, in education and jobs. We're going to be investing in education and jobs, not jails or incarceration. I was in Flint, Michigan a week ago, and I had the opportunity of talking with some people there in a private conversation. And I must tell you that I was shattered after hearing what they had to say. I was told by parents that they have observed in their beautiful kids mental deterioration because of the lead in the water in Flint, Michigan. Can you imagine watching a beautiful, vivacious, bright kid go from being a good student 2 years later being in special education because of the deterioration of her cognitive capabilities? I could not, as I listened to what they were telling me, honest to God, I could not believe that I was hearing this discussion in the United States of America in 2016. And I cannot believe that I'm hearing in Chicago schools being shut down, or universities being closed. What is going on? How does it happen that 58% of all new income goes to the top 1%, and we don't have enough money to provide safe and clean drinking water or schools for our children? That is crazy stuff. If elected president, we're going to fight for $1 trillion investment in rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. 13 million decent-paying jobs, rebuilding our water systems, our wastewater plants, our old schools, our airports, our levees, our dams, our roads, our bridges. And we're going to pay for that by ending an outrageous loophole that allows profitable corporations making billions of dollars a year in profit to stash their money in the Cayman Islands and other tax havens and not pay a nickel in federal taxes. Now, everybody in this room understands that education is inherent to who we are as human beings. We want to be learning until the day we die. And we also understand that in a competitive global economy, we need the best educated workforce in the world. Now, what thinking outside of the box is about is asking a simple question. How does it happen that when we need the best educated workforce, we got hundreds of thousands of bright, qualified young people who cannot go to college for one reason: their families lack the income? That is crazy. You know, today a college degree in many respects is the equivalent of what a high school degree was 50 years ago. 50 years ago, you got a high school degree, you can go out and get yourself a pretty damn good job. That was a lot of education back then. The world has changed. The economy has changed. People today need more education than they used to. And that is why I believe that when we talk about public education in 2016, it's not good enough to talk about first grade through 12th grade. We have got to make public colleges and universities tuition free. People say, That's a radical idea. It is not a radical idea. It exists. It exists in Germany. It exists in Scandinavia. It exists in countries all over the world. And you know what? It used to exist in this country 50 years ago when public colleges and universities were virtually tuition-free. And here is something else that is pretty crazy. We got millions of young people and people not so young who are being crushed by very high levels of student debt. Anybody here? I talked to a doctor, young doctor, Burlington, Vermont, her dream, going to medical school. She did. Came out $300,000 in debt. Young woman in Iowa went to dental school, and we need a lot of dentists, $400,000 in debt. A young man, 2 years in college, had to drop out, $60,000 in debt. A guy in Nevada, 55 years of age, he's been paying off his student debt for 25 years. He's more in debt today than he was when he took it out. Brothers and sisters, that is crazy stuff. What we are telling people in this country, you need an education. Get the best education that you can. And then what we are doing is punishing them with decades of debt. We've got legislation in, and I will make this happen if elected president, that does two things. It makes public colleges and universities tuition-free, and it will allow people with student debt to refinance those loans at the lowest interest rates they can find. Now, the establishment, the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Post, and my opponents say, oh, Bernie, you're too radical. Too radical an idea. How are you going to pay for it? Well, let me tell you how we are going to pay for that proposal. This country bailed out the crooks on Wall Street. I believe we should impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. We bailed out Wall Street. Now it is Wall Street's time to help working families in this country. That's not a radical idea. That is a common sense idea. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment. I have had the opportunity of speaking with scientists all over our country and all over the world. And let me tell you that the debate is over. Climate change is real. Climate change is caused by human activity. And if we do not get our act together in the very near future, a bad situation will become much worse in future years. We have a moral responsibility to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable for our children and our grandchildren. Many of my Republican colleagues are running all over the country, and they talk about family values, how much they love families. I want everybody here to be crystal clear about what they mean by family values. What they mean is that no woman in this room, in this state, or in this country should have the right to control her own body. I disagree. What they mean is that our gay brothers and sisters should not have the right to be married. I disagree. My wife Jane and I have been married 27 years. We believe in family. We believe strongly in family. But when we talk about family values, what we mean is ending the international disgrace in which the United States is the only major country on earth not to guarantee paid family and medical leave. So I'm getting into this thing. I'm working up a little sweat here. It's good. When we talk about unfinished business, when we talk about where we have got to go as a nation, I want everybody here to understand that there are 11 million undocumented people in this country. And many of these people are being exploited. Many of these people are living in fear. The right thing to do is for Congress to pass comprehensive immigration reform with with a path toward citizenship. And if Congress does not do its job, I will use the executive powers of the presidency to do everything I can. Now, when we think outside of the box, when we think outside of the status quo, I want you all to consider that today in this world there is one major country that does not guarantee health care to all people. The United Kingdom does it, France does it, Germany does it, Holland does it, Scandinavia does it, Italy does it, Canada does it, guarantees health care to all people. Now, I'm a member of the committee that helped write the Affordable Care Act, and the Affordable Care Act has done some very good things. And I thank President Obama for his leadership in that fight. But despite the gains of the ACA, 29 million Americans have no health insurance today. Many of you are underinsured with large deductibles and large copayments, yes? And we continue to be ripped off in an unconscionable way by the drug companies who charge us the highest prices in the world for medicine. If you want to talk about crazy, understand that 1 out of 5 Americans cannot even fill the prescriptions their doctors prescribe. That is crazy. And on top of all that, we end up paying much more per person for health care than do the people of any other country. That is why I believe that health care is a right for all people, not a privilege. And that is why I will fight for a Medicare for all health care program. Now, one of the criticisms thrown at me as a candidate is, well, you know, Bernie is a nice guy, he combs his hair beautiful, he dresses really well. But despite all of that, he can't win a general election. So let me take the pleasure of informing you that the last Wall Street Journal NBC poll had me beating Donald Trump by 18 points. And in fact, we are beating him in the polls in almost every national poll by significantly higher margins than Secretary Clinton. Poll came out last week in Michigan. We were beating him by 19 points. But polls go up and down. But the real reason that together we are going to beat Trump if he is the Republican candidate, the real reason is because the American people will not accept a president who insults Mexicans, who insults Muslims. Do you know, I don't know how many of you know this, as you know, the United Kingdom is our oldest ally. They had a debate in the United Kingdom a few months ago as to whether or not they would allow Trump to even visit the United Kingdom. The American people are not going to elect a president who insults women, who insults African Americans. Now, some of you may have forgotten this, but please don't. A few years ago, Trump was one of the leaders of the so-called birther movement. And that movement was a vicious effort to undermine the legitimacy of President Barack Obama. That's what it was. Now, I have always found it very funny that President Obama's father was born in Kenya. My father was born in Poland. That's right, in Chicago we got a few people from Poland, right? But here is my point. Isn't it interesting that they all wanted to see Barack Obama's birth certificate? Nobody wants to see my birth certificate. Maybe it just happens to be the color of my skin. The American people will defeat Trump because they understand that bringing our people together trumps dividing us up. We will defeat Trump because the American people understand that community, helping each other, defeats and trumps selfishness. And most importantly, the American people know what every religion, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, teaches us, and that is that at the end of the day, love trumps hatred. Now, what the political revolution is about, as I said earlier, millions of people standing up and fighting back. On Tuesday, here in Illinois, you have an opportunity to have this state lead the country in moving toward a political revolution. What has happened in previous primaries and caucuses, we win when voter turnout is high, we lose when voter turnout is low. Next Tuesday, let us make certain we have a record-breaking turnout here in Illinois. Thank you all very much. Everybody ready for a little music?
Okay, how about one more song for Bernie? Maybe a little Woody Guthrie. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me. I've roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of a diamond desert. And all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you and me.
University
This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was